Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Creating Wealth with our amazing Robert Allen. Thank you so much for coming to our studios today.
Thank you, and thank you for being here.
And today we're going to talk about what the due diligence process is. So first of all, what's the due diligence?
It means to figure out whether or not it's worthy of being bought, And so due diligence would be checking out the property itself, whether or not it's worthy to be bought. And usually that process is about taking in a property inspection company and having them do some of the physical due diligence for you. But there's also financial due diligence on you, and they want to check you out. So sometimes you're doing due diligence on the seller, and sometimes they're doing due diligence on you, right? So a due diligence really means everybody checks out everybody, and there's usually a time frame in order to pull that off. And usually it's put into the contract. Due diligence ends on 10 days from now, and everybody agrees that we've checked each other out and we like each other. Let's move forward.
So what would you say is a really good amount of time that we could use for a due diligence?
Well, for you as a buyer, as long as possible. You want the due diligence to last until the end of the contract. And the realtor, it wants the due diligence to happen tomorrow.
No.
So that's part of negotiation. You try to put as far out as possible before you have to make your earnest money go hard. And they'll actually say that. Now the earnest money is now at risk, meaning if you don't close, you lose. You have to give up your earnest money because you didn't close like you said you would. So the bottom line answer is the due diligence process is a negotiation point that should be pushed out as far as you can possibly push it. So start long, and then let it be a concession to you to make it half as long as what you said. So, but it's still long enough.
That's
2
right.
weeks, 2 weeks, 3 weeks would probably be realistic.
Plenty of time as well for you to review every single aspect of the property, because then again, once you are going through the property, I feel like you would notice all of those tiny little details that maybe the seller didn't say over the phone, but at least you can plan on them.
Now, sometimes with due diligence, the property inspection company is busy. Now, there are going to be many property inspection companies in your area, but sometimes they're just so busy that it's going to be 2 weeks out, 3 weeks out before they can actually get to you. And then it's going to take them, 2 or 3 days to finally finish a report. So you might make it subject to you finding a property inspection company that can do the due diligence for you in a reasonable period of time. And if they can't, then you have an out. But that's another way to extend it if you can.
And it's kind of like a protection as well, just in case that you were to find something super horrible when you step into the building. Now, another part of getting into a contract in a property is to move the financing forward. So there are 3 types that I know of that are for getting the money to actually pay all of these fees. One of them would be through partnerships. What are some of the delays that you have seen?
Actually, there are 3. The banks, and the banks could be several types of banks.
Oh, wow.
It can be a mortgage company, then that's all they do is lend mortgage money. Then there could be a traditional bank who has a mortgage department.
Right.
And therefore it may be your bank. You go to your bank, and since they know you, perhaps there's a mortgage department in your bank, so check that out. There are also savings and loans and what's another? I'm blanking here, but where you put your money into a
kind of like a private lender at that point?
Well, no, it's a financial institution, but it's smaller.
Oh,
Let's
a
put it that
credit
way.
union.
Credit union. There you go.
We're in sync.
Yeah, a credit union. And credit unions are good. They're good because they want to lend their money out from their members. And therefore, if you're a member of a credit union, that's good. So those are the traditional ways of financing. Now, the non-traditional ways would be where the seller would be the bank, and that's seller financing. And that seller financing can be the entire property.
All right.
Maybe they would be the bank on the whole thing, or they might be a finance part of the property. In other words, you put a down payment of, say, 10%, and they will carry the rest of their equity in the form of a second mortgage with monthly payments over a period of time. And that's another way of doing it. And then the third way would be with private investors. And there's two types of private investors.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, there's an investor who lends you the money with an interest rate attached to it.
Oh.
They say the normal interest rate is 5, 6, 7, 8%. We charge 10%.
Oof.
And so it's higher.
Yeah.
But
definitely.
they give you the financing you need. So
Just right away.
yeah, exactly. Or they charge a high. Or that you could say, why don't you be my partner? You put up the money, I'll put up the deal. I found the deal. We both win. And so therefore they get half the profit. Therefore there's no monthly payments to them, no interest to them, and there's a hybrid of both.
And they get to be kind of like co-owners at that point.
They would definitely be owners. Now the first one, as an investor, they wouldn't be a co-owner. They would just be using the property as collateral, and you make the monthly payments. But the third hybrid would be, okay, you be an investor and an owner. I'll give you a guaranteed 6% on your money. So the first of the profits that come out, you get the first 6%. And of the remaining amount, you get 50% of that.
Oh.
So what I'm trying to say is, when it comes to creative financing, which is my specialty, there are just lots of different ways of doing this deal. And it's nice to know kind of what the general areas are. And so that answers that question.
So just as a little recap, the ways that we have for financing are, first,
banks, financial institutions that are more traditional, the seller financing, and partner financing.
And with all of these three different types, what are some of the delays that you can see within the process? Are they all the same length?
Every one of them has different delays.
Ooh, let's hear them.
Yeah, so the financial institutions, they want to check you out. And they're going to ask about what is your cash, credit, collateral, and cash flow. In other words, you have a job, you have steady income, you have a down payment, cash, what's your credit rating, and what's your financial statement?
Cool.
How much asset do you possess? They're going to ask for all those four things. And sometimes it takes a little while for you to pull them together, and if your credit rating isn't quite good enough, they might give you a little extra time where you can say, I'm just in the process of cleaning that one, ding on my credit. It might take me another 2 weeks to clean that ding up. So sometimes that will be a slowdown in the process. Maybe when it comes to the seller wants to check you out. What are your cash, credit, cash flow, and collaterals? But you don't want to let them know that those are four assets that they should be checking out.
No.
You want them to ask you, what do you need? And you provide for them exactly what they ask for, but not any more than that. Because as you reveal more information, it raises more questions. And so that's why you like to find a seller who is so motivated to sell, who is so desperate to get rid of it, that is so grateful that you come along to help them with their problem, that they don't even want to ask those questions because it might kill the deal.
Right.
Now,
They just want to get rid of the property ASAP.
This is a very rare circumstance. That's why 1% of the deals are from highly, highly, highly motivated sellers. That's why you look for them, right? And then finally, there may be, when it comes to your partners, there are delays there. They might take time to do their due diligence, to check the property themselves. They got to inspect it themselves. So usually there's going to be a delay somewhere along the road. So it rarely goes smoothly. Just expect it to not be smooth. That one of the financial sources is probably going to have a hiccup, whether it's financial institutions, the seller financing, or the partner financing. One of those is going to give you a problem. Just be ready for it don't be surprised or disappointed.
Yeah, if anything, be prepared, having any other documents that you may need in order to move forward with the process. Now, when it comes to buying a property, I know that some properties are already rented, and if you're an investor, you may want to be looking at them. I also know that some of these tenants may allow you to go through the whole house and inspect it and everything, but would you consider it's a good investment to go and purchase a home that is already being rented?
You inspect the contract with the renter.
Oh.
And you're looking for the clause that says that you have the right to inspect the property. So the seller can tell the renter that usually once a month, with adequate notice, they must allow the seller to come through. And the seller could go with you, or maybe allow you to go in their place, but the contract will let you know that. The contract will also let you know the time frame. How long is this property rented for? And is there a clause in the contract that allows you to increase the rent before the actual clause, actual time frame expires? If that doesn't exist, then the contract that has been signed between the previous owner and the renter is in force, and you can't abrogate it. You can't break it. It has to be continued until the contract expires. So you at least want to look at the property, so that there should be a clause like that. And then you have to be ready. If the seller is going to let the renter stay there because that was the agreement they made, you have to honor that agreement. Let's put it that way.
Gotcha.
And then you may want that tenant to stay there. It might be the best thing for you. The contract may be a good price, and they've been there for a year or so. You want a long-term tenant. The most expensive thing happens when the tenant moves out, because they're either going to trash it, that's most people are afraid of, or they're going to leave it needing to be fixed up for the new tenant. You don't want them to move out. You just don't. You want them to stay. And therefore, sometimes you might let them know as a new owner, you're going to keep the rental fairly stable, that you will do the contract, as it says, increase by 5% or 10%. But you want to give them a reason to stay. And then you want to let them know that you want them also to continue to do the minor fix-up that they would do on their own without bugging you about that. And if so, you might be willing to, extend the mortgage or extend the contract for another 6 months. You give them a little sweetness to continue to stay, if possible.
Right.
But if they're a bad tenant, and if the rent is not high enough, and you're going to increase it, then you have to go until the contract expires.
That's right. And I feel like from what I'm hearing, once you have a tenant already in the property that you're interested in investing on, it could be either positive or negative. You just have to make sure that the contract and the numbers, again, make sense with what you would be paying for your monthly payments in the mortgage.
Exactly.
Also, what are some of the ways that you can make a really good tenant stay after his contract is over?
You can give them concessions. You can say, I could increase your rent by 10%. The inflation, everybody knows inflation.
That's right, yeah.
So, but if you'd like to stay and take on some of the fix-up responsibilities, treat it well, then I'll only increase it 5%. So you start with a higher number, and you give them a concession. And if you start with a higher number, then anything lower than that makes it look good.
Yes.
makes it look good.
Right. More appealing for sure.
And you tell them, I want you to stay. If you do, if that's one of the cases you do, then let them know you want them to stay. Now, one radical thing you could do is you could give them ownership. You could give them a lease option. You could say to the existing tenant, would you like to buy this property? Well, maybe I could make it so that you could be the owner eventually. Unfortunately, that it's going to require a little bit of upfront cash on your part and a little bit higher monthly payment. So, for example, say the property's worth $300,000, and you think 3 years from now it'll be worth $400,000, right? You say to them, let's lock the price in at $400,000. I'll give you a lease option at that price. Excuse me. If things go up in value above $400,000, then it's to your good. If it goes to $450,000, then hey, you get
already have the clause.
You get
right?
that.
Yeah.
If it goes to $400,000, then obviously that's what it's worth at the time. But I'll give you a credit of every time you make a monthly payment to me. The rent's going to go up a little bit, but whatever the increase in rent that I'm going to increase it by now, you get back. 3 years from now, when you buy it, either 3 years or 4 years, or earlier, every increase that I make to the rent now, because I make you a possibility of being an owner, you get to recoup all of that 100%. I'll give you a credit against your virtual price. So if it's 400,000 and it's 500 a month as a credit, well, 500 a month times a year is $6,000. Times 3 years is $18,000. So
wow.
Instead of being 400, it's 482 or 382. So hey, it's almost like a down payment, you know. And so you could use that as a part of a down payment when you go to the bank. You could say, I have saved up a down payment. Of course, in a sense, you've gotten a credit
kind
for
of
it.
Right.
And that you got to make sure that's legal.
You got to word
I'm not
it
trying to
properly.
ask you to be unethical, but
Oh, yeah.
the bottom line is it could potentially be a proof of your down payment when you finally go get your loan. So that's a long, more complicated answer, but the answer is there are ways to make the renter want to stay and even pay more money in the rental and treat it better. Because if they're a potential owner, they're going to treat it like their own, it's their own.
Yeah.
And now, what percentage of those deals will actually fall out? You know, not every one of those will actually complete. You know, maybe there'll be a divorce in there, or maybe they will realize, you know, it's not the home we really want. We found something else. Well, that means that all the extra payment they made to you is forfeited.
That's right.
And you got a higher rent with a better tenant.
You got some extra cash.
There you go.
That's amazing. Yeah. So now, when it comes to the property itself, do you go for the process of verifying what the title is? And is it worth it to actually have an insurance on the title and the property?
Well, of course, it's not only important, but it's essential. You're going to have insurance, period, title insurance. Otherwise, if the seller says to you, oh, trust me, I really own it, you don't need to have title insurance. We can do a contract with me right now. You just send me the monthly payments. Here's the contract. I got the agreement. You know, I'll write you out. I can write you out a mortgage by myself. No.
It's kind of like part of the process of like checking the seller out and also checking you out.
Well, when it comes to the title insurance, you go to a title company.
Right.
And you have an escrow company that double checks whether or not they say they own it, do they really own it? And title insurance company will ensure that no matter what has gone on in their life before that, you are now been delivered a clean title to that property. You know you can borrow against it. You can sell it to somebody else. But I'll tell you what's going to happen in the next 5 years. Title insurance is going to be transcended.
Oh, why is that?
And NFTs. An NFT is where you link it up with the blockchain. And you've heard a lot of this. The first property that ever was sold with an NFT as a title was sold in Florida just a few months ago, and I met the partner of the guy who did it.
Oh,
so
wow.
I know who did it. And that was the very first one ever done in the history of the world. Done in Florida just a few months ago. And eventually you could insure the title of a property by the blockchain. And if the blockchain ever catches hold, we've got lots of turmoil going on there now, but eventually if NFT would ever really take hold, it would mean that anybody could insure a title by just linking it to the blockchain. So that's the future. Watch for that one. But in the meantime, for hundreds of years, title companies have been the way we do it, and it's expensive. You know,
how much is one of the the estimate that we should plan for the fees?
It's going to be depending on, of course, the price. It could be $1,000. It could be $3,000 or $4,000, depending on the price. But yeah, it's an insurance like you would insure your life. You would insure your title, and
That's
so
right.
you pay that insurance to these title company officers. That's all their business is, to insure, to research, to make sure that nobody has clouded the title, put a lawsuit on
or
that
like
property, a lien on that
Yeah.
property, so that you are not really protected. You know, so yeah, once they get a title, you feel very comfortable about it.
Now, any other last tips that you could give us when we are in the process of signing the final documents for being the owners of a property? Any last tips that you could give us?
I'm going to give you one that you probably won't believe.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's hear it.
Your intuition is extremely powerful, and nobody teaches it. But I want you to actually literally turn on your intuition when you walk through the property. Your intuition is a guide. It's almost like, does this feel right? And nobody teaches it because it's hard to quantify.
Right.
I can't give you a number. All I can give you is a feeling. And so as you're walking through it, it's almost like, does everything feel right? And it's difficult to separate intuition from fear. Fear means I'm afraid my credit's being checked. I'm worried they're gonna not like me. I'm afraid this person's gonna take advantage of me. You know, that's fear. But beneath general normal fear is intuition. And it goes, does this feel right? Does this feel, or does it feel kind of grumbly, like, that's the exact sound if you hear that sound. And it just, you know, it just doesn't seem, something's not quite right. Now, women are really good at this.
Ooh.
Because this is their strength. Men are not quite as good, but they can learn it. They can learn to trust their gut. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's not gut. Sometimes it's their heart. Sometimes it just seems like something's not quite right here, right?
If it doesn't feel right, that's not the way to go.
And it's crazy. Sometimes the numbers don't seem right, but your intuition goes, there's something good here. And sometimes the numbers are like I say, the numbers are wrong, but your intuition is right. Sometimes the numbers are right, and it scores well on my little scoring system, and it seems like the price is right and the financing is right, but there's just something that's just not quite right there. And in many cases, I'll say, you know, I just don't think this is one for me right now. And having the courage to say no is really difficult. And having not had the courage to say no one or two times in my career has cost me fortunes.
Oh no.
When the deal seemed right. But you know, I wasn't aware of the future. The future is like, you know, there's going to be a catastrophic problem coming in the future that will like
and you never
how
know.
about somebody who bought a property on March the 1st, 2000?
Oh no.
And we're so excited about buying this property and realizing that 1 week later, the world would fall apart.
Oh.
And that and the price that they were offering was too high, you know? So sometimes intuition. So summarizing that point, the final piece is you're just ready to sign. You take a deep breath. Does this feel right? If it does, you have this calming feeling. Believe it or not, sometimes it's just true. Mm-hmm. And if you have this, something's not right here, and separate it out. Is it fear, or is this hunch? Is it a hunch, or is it inspiration? Could be higher powers, inspiration. No, not this one. There's a better one. So that would be my final piece of advice as you get ready to close this off.
Thank you so much again, Robert, and thank you to our audience. So whenever you're about to finalize your super amazing deal, make sure to trust your gut. See you on the next episode. Bye-bye.